Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about positive and negative zodiac degrees, zodiac sign degrees. Now, the thing about this is, this is something that was actually like a revelation to me fairly recently. This is, based on something I had read in a book entitled "Chart Your Own Horoscope." It was written, I believe the author is Ursula Lewis, a fairly renowned author, astrologer. And the thing about this is apparently there are positive and negative degrees in astrology. It's not, and I'm not talking about like the critical degrees or anything like that, but I'm talking about that there are, 180 degrees apparently that are positive, 180 that are negative. And the way it works is based on this, this wheel that, the zodiac wheel that has positive and negative degrees. The positive degrees in astrology, as far as the zodiac signs, in the book it states for the planets, but I believe, let's say presumably, it could be applied to other major astrological energies. So here goes. This positive degrees in astrology are zero to, as far as the masculine signs go. The masculine signs, of course, are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. Now, for those signs, the positive degrees are between 0 and 4 degrees 59 minutes of arc. And also, they are between 15 degrees and 24 degrees 59 minutes of arc. Those are the positive degrees for the masculine signs. Now, of course, the negative degrees then for the negative degrees for the masculine signs would be between 5 degrees 4 and 14 degrees 59 minutes of arc, and also 25 degrees to 29 degrees 59 minutes of arc. That would apply for the masculine signs. Now we talk about the feminine or introverted signs. The feminine or introverted signs of the zodiac, of course, are Taurus, Cancer, Virgo, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces. For those signs, the positive degrees, as far as those feminine signs may go, the positive for them are between 5 degrees, 14 degrees 59 minutes of arc, and also in addition to that, between 25 degrees and 29 degrees 59 minutes of arc. Those are the positive degrees for the feminine signs. Now, as far as the negative or adverse degrees for the feminine or introverted signs, those negative degrees fall between 0 degrees to 4 degrees 59 minutes of arc. Also, between 15 degrees and 24 degrees 59 minutes of arc. I know it sounds a little confusing, and some of you that know me, or you want to write me on, even if you don't know me on Facebook, you want to write me to elaborate or elucidate on this or what have you, I can write it as well. I may put it in the video description as well, because I know this sounds a little convoluted, a little confusing to people. But I mean, I must have known this when I originally purchased this book. This was very insightful, and the thing about this is, but it was like a revelation to me again, because I had forgotten about that. But you could say I learned it later on when I purchased the book again. Now, again, it does come from that. This comes from that book, Chart Your Own Horoscope by Ursula. I believe the name is Ursula Lewis. Again, a very renowned, prolific writer, astrology writer, my understanding, and astrologer. Now, the thing I want to get to is now, as far as the positive and negative degrees go, of course, well, what you want to look at in your chart, what I consider the 12 major astrological influences, the 10 planets plus the ascendant in midheaven. If you have the majority of that major astrological energy, if you have that in positive degrees, say you have at least 7 of the 12 in positive degrees, you could be, it would indicate about being more objective, more extroverted, gregarious, putting yourself out there more, manifesting a more positive energy, more about expressing yourself outwardly, more expressing yourself really, very, coming out, as far as, just being more outgoing and being more, and as far as your outlook may go, may be more realistic. But if you have a preponderance or majority of your major astrological energy in negative degrees, then it would be the antithesis of that. You might be more subjective, more introverted, introspected, more self-restrained, more inhibited. Not so much about your expression may be suppressed. You may be more secluded, and a lot of this, of course, is predicated and dependent whether this really, what could really, as far as what could reinforce or reaffirm this, a lot of that could be predicated on other elements of your chart, as far as like your planetary distribution. Like, say, if you have, let's say you have the majority of your major astrological energy in positive degrees, and you have the majority of your planets on the top half of the chart, and they're in most of your major astro energy is in extroverted or masculine signs, you could be a person that could really be very exceptionally gregarious and outgoing and extroverted and very objective, and more about putting yourself out there as opposed to introversion and introspection. But at the same time, you could have the majority, someone could have, another example could be, someone could have the majority of their major astrological energy in positive degrees, but let's say they have a preponderance of planetary energy on the bottom half of the chart, and most of their major astrological energy is in feminine signs. So you would have to factor that in, and that person, of course, would likely be more introverted and introspective than the typical person that would have the majority of their major astrological influences in positive degrees. So you would have to, you could, in a person, let's say they have it for pretty much split the as far as their major astrological energy in positive and negative degrees. This could be a person that could be very balanced in terms of being objective and subjective, and understanding maybe when they're going to put themselves out there, when they're going to be more unobtrusive and more to themselves. So the thing about this is too, when you look at when you look at this, and again, as far as positive degrees of the signs, we understand that the masculine signs are positive anyway, generally, as far as, okay, again, not to be overly redundant, but going to Aries, Gemini, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, and Aquarius, they're going to be generally positive anyway. But of course, if somebody has a masculine, the planet is in, or major astrological energy, even if it's the ascendant, in a positive sign, but if it's in a negative degree, some of that energy may be a little bit more negative, or what I think how it may manifest is that they might be bringing out more of the negative energy connected with that sign. It does, like, I mean, say for example, somebody has, I mean, a Leo ascendant. I mean, they're going to come out, of course, very outwardly as far as their outer demeanor as very gregarious, very extroverted, very self-assured, very confident. But if they have it in a negative degree, they might a lot of times bring out some more of the negative energy connected with that sign, such as maybe arrogance or self-centeredness or being egotistical or being overly cocky or cocksure, those kind of overly flamboyant. That's how it may, I would see how that could manifest. Somebody that has, I mean, you talk about it in this exam. I mean, you look at people, you know, and okay, and let's take the sign Gemini for example. Now, I'll use something from my chart as an example. Okay, I have Gemini moon at 11 degrees, right? Now that falls in a negative, okay, in a negative degree because again, the masculine signs, that negative one of the negative intervals for, you know, as far as degrees go, range between 5 degrees, okay, 5 degrees Gemini to 14 degrees 59. I'm sorry, between let me say this again, my bad. As far as the negative degrees for the masculine signs, one of the intervals for the negative degrees of the masculine signs falls between 5 degrees and 14 degrees 59 minutes of arc. So what this is, so my moon in Gemini is at 11 degrees. Of course, that would be, saying that as a negative, 11 degrees would be a negative degree. And the thing about that is the fact it's at 11. When you look at this at 11 degrees and being a negative, that means I may be bringing out, even though Gemini energy is generally positive and they could be very progressive, and but the thing about it is it could be bringing out some of the negative energy of the sign. Given that it's the moon, it could be more, you know, high-strung, excitable responses, a lot of varied, you know, emotions, not being able to sustain one feeling for persistently or for a protracted period. So that is one. I mean, that is one way that could that could manifest and pan out as far as that example goes with me. But the thing about it is, it's also, I mean, it's imperative, of course, to make sure that you're evaluating the whole chart completely, and as I've stated in other videos I've made, that you're not isolating any one proponent of a chart or component of a chart and making an astrological analysis based on that alone, because we are the sum of all the components in our astrological chart. And if somebody, again, going back to, let's say you're a person that has the majority of your, as far as your major astrological influences, if they fall in negative signs, it's not necessarily the end of the world about all gloom and doom. If you have, because what could compensate for that, and you could have some contraindicators, again, if you have the majority of your planetary placements on the top half of the chart, and or majority of astrological influences in masculine signs. And remember that planets and astrological energy can will move out of their negative degrees at some point by progression as well. So that could help alleviate some of the negativity that could be associated with that. Now, thought was interesting. I don't know. I mean, again, I forget, the exact, I mean, he didn't have his time of birth obviously was not available online. But that guy, that weepy voice killer known as, I think it was Paul Michael Stefani was his name. It wouldn't surprise me if he had a moon in moon was either in Taurus or Gemini, depending on birth time. It wouldn't surprise me if he had his moon in Gemini at a negative degree, because it seemed like he expressed a lot of like duality on at least on a subconscious level. It was like he took on one persona. He had a sun in Virgo, which of course he showed, a lot of that, his meticulous, scrupulous energy and ethical energy to others. But it's interesting that the moon in Gemini, if he had a moon in Gemini, which I'm strongly suspicious of, that it would have brought, I mean, and especially, okay, being in if he had it in a negative degree, if he had it between, say, negative degree would fall between 5 degrees, one interval is between 5 degrees and 14 degrees 59 minutes of arc for Gemini. So it wouldn't surprise me if he had it in that interval, because he may have subconsciously be bringing out even dual-like qualities, because it seemed like, I mean, you're talking about one person one moment and then one person the next. So I thought that was an example of that. And I wouldn't be surprised, if I'm not mistaken, that also some other negative, you could say even nefarious Gemini energy came from that guy, the son of Sam. I believe his name is David Berkowitz, and his son was in Gemini, and I believe it fell in that interval. It was between 5 degrees Gemini and 14 degrees 59 minutes of arc, which of course which falls in the negative, one of the negative degree intervals for Gemini. So I think, it would not surprise me. I believe it was in somewhere around there, because I think he had his sun in Gemini was somewhere near like 11 or 12 degrees, somewhere around there. But you've got to confirm that and look that up, because I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. And until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.